Hello everyone. Let's have a quick look at something that we've taken for granted for way too long. Let's look at race strategy. During an F1 weekend, you'll hear things like, we're expecting one-stop strategies at this track, or two-stop strategies are the norm, but some teams might try and go for the one-stop. What factors determine what make the best strategy at a given track? And how do teams go about calculating this? In this video, I'm going to go over the basic variables that build towards an effective race strategy. Let's simplify this right down to make it easier to see how everything works. Let's start by imagining a 10-lap race. I'm going to draw a bar chart with the length of each bar representing a lap time. Let's start by looking at different pit strategies with different compound tyres. Let's say at a certain race you've got the soft tyre that lasts for 5 to 6 laps and will give you lap times of 80 seconds, and the super soft tyre, which will last for about 3 or 4 laps and give you lap times of 75 seconds, so 5 seconds quicker. A pit stop will cost you 25 seconds no matter what tyres you've got on. For the moment, we're going to ignore all other variables and rules. We're just keeping it simple to start. Okay, so one strategy could be running the soft tyre for 5 laps, pitting, and then running the soft tyre for another 5 laps. Another strategy could be running the super softs for 4 laps, pitting, running them for another 3 laps, pitting again, and then running a third set of super softs until the end. Which is the better strategy? Well, we can work this out by adding up all the lap times plus the pit stops, and this is the only maths I'm going to do in this whole video, so don't worry. The one-stop soft tyre strategy is 80 seconds a lap times 10 laps plus the 25 seconds for the pit stop. That comes to 825 seconds for the whole race. The two-stop super soft strategy is 75 seconds times the 10 laps plus 2 times the 25-second pit stops. That all adds up to 800 seconds. So in this very simplified model, the two-stop strategy is fastest, by 25 seconds. Now we build on this. One thing we need to add into our model is the tyre wear profile. So this describes how the grip level of the tyre drops off with every lap. I'll go into more detail on how and why tyre performance degrades in another video, but in basic terms, we're going to assume the tyre will be at its fastest when fresh and get slower and slower with every lap. The way in which the tyre wears will depend on certain things like the type of compound it's made of, the track surface, the temperature, and how many fast corners there are, etc. But we can essentially draw a curve like this to describe how the tyre wear will affect the lap times over the course of the race. Faster lap times up front, lengthening over time. We can see here what's referred to as the cliff. This is when the lap times start to plummet rapidly due to excessive degradation of the tyre rubber. Drivers will want to pit before it hits this level. Here's how the one-stop strategy changes if we factor in the tyre wear profile. And now we see the curve replicated in the bars. It's easy to see how much time can be lost due to tyre wear over the course of a race, and dealing with this through strategy is vitally important. Now, this model strategy we've been looking at isn't actually allowed in the real F1. As we know, each driver has to use 2 different compounds of tyre out of a choice of 3 during the course of a race. How you use the available compounds by assembling a race out of a number of stints can make all the difference to your result. So let's extend the model a little bit and let's give them 20 laps now, and this will make stints easier to see. Now, an example of a conservative strategy might be start on the super soft tyre. It's almost always best to use the grippiest tyre for the start to get off the line well, get in the fight for the early positions. Let's say the super soft tyre has 6 good laps in it. After 6 laps, you might take a pit stop and run the medium tyres all the way to the end of the race. Now, the mediums aren't amazingly fast, but they are consistent, and they will take you to the end, meaning you don't have to take a second pit stop. Alternatively, you might take a more aggressive strategy. You start with the super soft for the 6 laps again, but then you switch to the soft tyre. The soft is faster than the mediums, but it won't make it to the end of the race. So you plan on taking a second pit stop and switching back to the super softs for a faster sprint to the finish. In this strategy, you'll be on a faster compound of tyre than the conservative strategy for 14 laps, and that's 70% of the race. But you do have to take an extra 25-second hit for that second pit stop. So you might find that the aggressive strategy is actually slower than the conservative strategy. But you might still use it if, A, you think your driver and car are much better at managing the tyres than the competition, or B, you expect some disruption to the race, like a safety car. And we'll get onto this a bit more in a bit. Now we've added the simple model for tyre wear, let's consider fuel. So there's no refueling, the cars are filled up at the start, and over the race the fuel drops, which makes the car get lighter over the course of the race, which improves overall lap time, as the car has to expend less energy pulling its own weight around, and it makes the cars easier on tyre wear. For simplicity's sake, in our model, let's just say the car gets faster as it uses up fuel in a fairly predictable way. And again, like with the tyre wear, we can draw a curve to express how this affects the lap times. Now the car is allowed to be filled up with 105 kilograms of fuel, but running at maximum performance for the whole race may require closer to 200 kilograms. Not only that, but the fuel weight is so detrimental to racing speed that strategists might not even want to fill the car to the brim. This means that some fuel management is needed throughout the race. Race strategists will arrive at the circuit with certain expectations. The start of the race and the laps around the pit stop phases will be the prime time to go maximum on the engine to get fast lap times and beat the competition. And you can see more about how this can be used to your advantage by watching the undercut video. And then there might be a safety car or two. Safety car and virtual safety car periods are run slow. Not only slow, but everybody has to keep the same pace. The engine will use much less fuel, and the tyres will take much less wear and tear, as you're actually not demanding very much of the car at all. This means that the more laps that are run behind the safety car, the harder the cars can run in the remaining laps of the race. They can take the softer tyres longer. They can run in higher engine modes for longer. If the safety car period occurs here, this neutralises these laps, which, and bear in mind I am oversimplifying this, effectively chops these laps out of the race. In the example here, the safety car comes out on lap 12 for 3 laps. At the time, the teams were expecting 8 more laps of racing, but now they've only got 5 more laps of racing. The car on the conservative strategy can now switch things up, take a free pit stop, and match the pace of the aggressive super stop strategy for the rest of the race. Now, you can't predict a safety car or virtual safety car, but you can make an educated guess. Some tracks, like Monaco or Singapore, have a high chance of a safety car occurring. So you might come at the race with some strategies that allow you the flexibility to change things up, or you might go aggressive with the fuel if you believe you'll be able to save some while under the safety car. We've covered some of the basic variables that go into building some race strategies. There are other factors that we'll need considering along the way, which I'll just briefly run through quickly. 1. The weather. Variations in temperature and the probability of rain might affect your compound choices. If you're expecting some rain to come in halfway through the race, then you're not going to do the conservative strategy that we showed, where you pick the medium tyres to run to the end of the race, because you're not expecting to run to the end of the race on those tyres. You're going to switch on to probably intermediates. If the track is difficult to overtake on, you might choose not to go aggressive, as aggressive strategies normally require some overtaking. You take the extra pit stop, which puts you behind other cars, who you'll now need to overtake in order to exploit your lap time potential. You may even get stuck behind unexpectedly slow cars through no fault of your own. In cases where you expect to encounter some traffic, you might switch up your strategy so that your pit stops are out of sync with the cars around you, so you don't end up on the track in the same place as them. And also, a team may often concoct strategies that take into account both of their drivers, to make sure they're both fairly treated, to keep them out of the way each other on the track, or to allow the number 2 driver to assist the number 1 driver in their quest for title glory. Now, this has just been a simple introduction to the way that strategies are put together, and these are very basic models compared to what they're actually using at the track. But at its very essence, you're always modelling how lap times are expected to unfold, adding those times together and trying to come up with a strategy that produces the smallest overall race time from all of those laps. It's simple, really. Right? Right? If you enjoyed this video, consider sponsoring me on Patreon. Every little bit helps me keep videos coming out consistently.